Do you remember? Easily one of the most memorable lines of my childhood. Arguably more memorable than... Mortal Kombat was a video game phenomenon in the early 90s, claiming pretty much all of my quarters and many others when it was first released in arcades back in 1992. The game featured realistic digitized graphics, something innovative for its time, and doubled down on gore.
Excellent. Sub-Zero wins.
It sparked major controversy for its ultra-violent blood and guts style of gameplay, which became even more of a hot topic in 1993 when the game was released on home consoles. Parents were outraged by its graphic scenes of violence, which included decapitations, severed heads, and lots of blood.
As ABC's Bill Greenwood reports, there is a growing concern on Capitol Hill that parents who buy some of those games may not realize just how much violence they're getting.
One of the most vicious games is called Mortal Kombat. The objective is to finish off your opponent violently.
This led Nintendo to removing much of the gore, swapping the blood for sweat in the SNES release, which prompted Sega-haters like myself to jump ship once it was revealed that the Genesis version had the famed blood code. Pushing the envelope of violence, Mortal Kombat was a contributing factor in the creation of the ESRB rating system that now accompanies most video games.
Even so, the giant Sega Corporation recently introduced a voluntary system to rate video games for use by a general audience, those over 13 and over 17.
Much of the controversy of Mortal Kombat was in the presumed notion that violent video games are bad for children. Many countries banned the game altogether, and many angry parents tried their best to do so as well in the United States.
Understand that these are not harmless toys, that they can indeed cause great emotional and other damage to a child.
Violent video games have been repeatedly blamed for inspiring real-life events, including the 1999 Columbine shooting. And if it wasn't video games being blamed, it was Marilyn Manson.
Some will be so brash to ask if we believe that all who hear Manson tomorrow night will go out and commit violent acts. The answer is no. But does everybody who watches a Lexus ad go and buy a Lexus? No, but a few do.
This raises the question, do violent video games make people more violent? Do they desensitize you to violence or cause behavior problems in kids? I grew up with Mortal Kombat, and I certainly am not a violent person. So, let's find out. Thanks for checking out Nostalgia, where we explore and find the answers to common questions through the lens of classic pop culture. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know what questions you want us to explore next. Firstly, this is a highly arguable topic, which isn't so black and white. Video games as we know them have only been around since the late 70s and 80s, meaning there is nowhere near the amount of evidence for or against their violent effects than, say, something like TV and movies. But we can look at some research that points us in the right direction. One study released in 2011 out of Nova Southeastern University and Pacific University cites that playing violent video games produces higher levels of aggressive cognition, physiological arousal, and aggressive behavior compared to that of non-violent video games. However, that is only short term, and admittedly, limitations of the investigation show that the effects of violent versus non-violent video games on aggression have failed to equate these games in terms of competitiveness, difficulty, and pace of action. And in previous studies, the measure of aggression is similar to the measure of competitiveness, meaning they might be one and the same, at least in this particular case. Now, the American Psychological Association has a very strong stance on this topic, claiming that high levels of violent video game exposure are linked to delinquency, fighting at school, and violent criminal behavior.
A horrifying possibility for parents who can't believe the game makers are fantasizing about decapitation and murder.
I don't think they'll have this at home, no.
You don't think so?
A little bit too violent.
You look a little startled.
Yeah, it's a little too violent, I think.
But on the flip side, in 2019, professor and research director at Virginia Tech, James Ivory, said that when it comes to actual serious criminal violence, there's virtually no evidence that video games matter. This was prompted after President Trump called for an end to the glorification of violence in gruesome and grisly video game culture.
It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence.
Ivy continued to say that it's okay morally to have a problem with celebrating violence, but it definitely doesn't make you a mass shooter. There are other things that affect that. The common conclusion amongst countless studies, while not definitive, is that violent video games do temporarily raise competitiveness and aggression in people, temporarily that is, but is typically not a predictor of violent crime as much as things like poverty, substance abuse, and child abuse. Knowing that, now I feel a little bit better uppercutting my opponent into the pit of death.
Excellent. Sub-Zero wins.